The fourth book, A Feast for Crows, was a big character installment and not so much plot, and one character's travels in particular got some special attention. Jaime Lannister is more conflicted than ever with how much time away from Cersei has changed him for the better. He's on the path to becoming the knight he's always dreamt of becoming, but is still struggling with abandoning his crazy family, even after the death of his son King Joffrey and Father Tywin. His traveling companion in the plot-heavy third book, Brienne of Tarth, has been his moral compass, pushing him back towards the qualities he once idolized from his mentors during his time on the Mad King's Kingsguard. Back then, he was surrounded by his heroes, Sir Arthur Dayne, Barristan Selmy, and his Lord Commander Gerald Hightower. Moments after the long-awaited reunion, the twin lovers began to fight like never before. For the first time, Jaime is free from her control, and Cersei does not like hearing no come out of his mouth. He turns down her offer to replace Tywin as Hand of the King, so she kicks her disobedient toy out of King's Landing. Jaime is charged with dealing with all the issues in the Riverlands, mainly House Tully's defiance and the surge of outlaw attacks. Being Lord Commander of the Kingsguard, Jaime felt his place was by the boy King Tommen, but agrees to leave Cersei to hit the road again. There's been a pressing issue that has been bothering him ever since he freed Tyrion anyways. A particular quote rings in his head constantly. Tyrion, as a last fuck you to the brother he thought always had his best interest, says, "Cersei is a lying whore. She's been fucking Lancel and Osmond Kettleblack, and probably Moonboy for all I know." Prior to this, naive Jaime believed Cersei would never lie or deceive him. If Cersei was going to take his duty away from him, Jaime was going to do something for himself on the road. Pay a certain Lannister a visit who was just given a new castle to rule from, to finally get an answer to quiet down the intrusive thoughts in his head. The Castle Darry was a little out of the way on the road to the Riverlands, but not by much, so no one would suspect why he would randomly show up. Darry had changed hands several times during the fighting, and his castle had been burned once, sacked twice. But Lancel had seemingly wasted little time settling things to rights. The castle gates were newly hung, raw oaken planks reinforced with iron studs. Of his uncle Kevin, he saw no sign, nor of Lancel. Only a maester emerged to greet him, with a grey robe flapping about his skinny legs. "Lord Commander, Darry is honored by this unexpected visit. You must forgive our lack of preparations. We had been given to understand that you were bound for Riverrun." "Darry was on my way," lied Jaime. "Riverrun will keep. And if perchance the siege had ended before he reached the castle, he would be spared the need to take up arms against House Tully." "And Lord Lancel? He's at his prayers. His lordship has commanded us never to disturb him when he is praying." Jaime didn't see how he got himself seriously injured during the Battle of Blackwater when Stannis attacked the capital. The wound on his arm was not healing properly, and his fate was unclear for a while. The High Septon's visits during his recovery helped his morale, and Lancel made it out alive. Looking a little rough, but alive. Though only 17, he might have passed for 70. Grey-faced, gaunt, with hollow cheeks, sunken eyes, and hair as brittle as chalk. It wasn't just his appearance that drastically changed. His whole character did a 180 by spending a little time praying with the now deceased former High Septon. Lancel was all about piety and devotion to the faith of the Seven now, as opposed to formerly being one of Cersei's playthings. It was a small and comedic shock for Jaime to hear. Piety and devotion. It was all he could do not to laugh. Cersei was very much aware of his newfound faith. The last conversation she had with him was unpleasant. When Lancel told her he was to marry a Frey girl not of his choosing, he had a gloomy, miserable look about his face when describing his new wife. But it was an important marriage to win House Darry and their land over to the Lannisters, since his wife, Amory Frey, was of Darry blood. Kevin Lannister assured his son Lancel that her bloodline will help him win over the peasants. Lancel finds this all cruel, but pushes forward, believing the old High Septon's words that he was kept alive for a holy purpose, so that he might atone for his sins. This frightens Cersei. Because it's true, she did sleep with Lancel in order to control him. Cersei wondered how he intended to atone for her. She liked his newfound piety not at all. Atonement is best achieved through prayer, Cersei told him. Silent prayer. But he wasn't so silent when confronted by Jaime some chapters later. There was one other change too. Lancel had some intimidating commoners walking about his new land. Cersei foolishly let the new High Septon form his own holy army, one that the Targaryens fought hard to abolish. Anointed knights under the new High Septon are called warriors' sons, and peasants are called the poor fellows. Both groups have unquestioning loyalty to their religious leader and no one else. Lord Lancel has been sleeping in the Sept while in the Castle Darry. Sleeping with the mother and the maiden when he has a warm wife just through that door, Jaime did not know whether to laugh or weep. Maybe he is praying for his cock to harden. In King's Landing, it had been rumored that Lancel's wounds had left him incapable. Still, he ought to have some sense enough to try. His cousin's hold on his new lands would not be secure until he fathered a son on his half-daughty wife. Jaime had begun to rue the impulse that brought him here. When Jaime approached the sept, 3 poor fellows guarding his doors rose. "Where are you going, my lord?" one asked. It was the smallest of the 3, but had the biggest beard. "Inside. His lordship's in there praying." "His lordship is my cousin." "Well then, my lord," said a different sparrow, a huge bald man with a 7-pointed star painted over one eye. "You won't want to bother your cousin at his prayers." The story starts referring to the poor fellows as sparrows at this point, hence the High Septon is nicknamed the High Sparrow, a very common bird. "Lord Lancel is asking the Father above for guidance," said the 3rd sparrow, the beardless one, a boy, Jaime had thought. But her voice marked for a woman, dressed in shapeless rags and a shirt of rusted mail. "He is praying for the soul of the High Septon and all the others who have died. They'll still be dead tomorrow," Jaime told her. "The Father above has more time than I do to know who I am." "Some lord," said the big man with the starry eye. "Some cripple," said the small one with the big beard. "The Kingslayer," said the woman. "But we're no kings, just poor fellows. And you can't go inside unless his lordship says you can." She hefted a spiked club, and the small man raised an axe. The doors behind them opened. "Let my cousin pass in peace, friends," Lancel said softly. "I have been expecting him." The sparrows moved aside. Lancel looked even thinner than he had in King's Landing. He was barefoot and dressed in plain, rough-spun tunic of undyed wool that made him look more like a beggar than a lord. The crown on his head had been shaved smooth, but his beard had grown out a little. To call it a peach fuzz would have given insult to the peach. It went queerly with the white hairs around his ears. "Cousin," said Jaime when they were alone in the sept, "have you lost your bloody wits?" "I prefer to say I found my faith." "Where is your father?" "Gone. We quarreled." Lancel knelt before the altar of his other father. "Will you pray with me, Jaime? If I pray nicely, will the Father give me a new hand?" "I dreamt that you would come. In the dream, you knew what I had done, how I'd sinned. You killed me for it. You're more like to kill yourself with all this fasting. You should be sleeping with your wife, not with the maid. You need a son with Dari blood if you want to keep this castle. A pile of cold stones I never asked for. I never wanted it. I only wanted..." Lancel shuddered. "Seven saved me, but I wanted to be you." Jaime had to laugh. "Better me than blessed Baelor. Dari needs a lion, cuz so does your little Frey. She gets moist between her legs every time someone mentions Hardstone. If she hasn't bedded him yet, she will soon. If she loves him, I wish them joy of one another. A lion shouldn't have horns. You took the girl to wife. I said some words and gave her a red cloak, but only to please father. Marriage requires consummation. King Baelor was made to wed his sister, but they never lived as man and wife, and he put her aside as soon as he was crowned. The realm would have been better served if he had closed his eyes and fucked her. I know enough history to know that. In any case, you're not to be taken for Baelor the Blessed." "No," Lancel allowed. "He was a rare spirit, pure and brave and innocent, untouched by all the evils of the world. I am a sinner with much and more to atone for." Jaime put his hand on his cousin's shoulder. "What do you know of sin, cuz? I killed my king." "The brave man slays with a sword, the craven with a wineskin. We are both kingslayers, sir." Robert was no true king. Some might say that a stag is a lion's natural prey. Jaime could feel the bones beneath his cousin's skin and something else as well. Lancel was wearing a hair shirt underneath his tunic. "What else did you do to require so much atonement? Tell me." His cousin bowed his head, tears running down his cheeks. Those tears were all the answer Jaime needed. "You killed the king," he said, "and then you fucked the queen." Jaime realizes that Lancel most definitely told the previous High Septon of his crimes. He wondered if his cousin had any notion what fruit his words had borne. "Lancel, you're a bloody fool," was all he could say. "You're not wrong," said Lancel. "My folly is behind me, sir. I have asked the Father above to show me the way, and he has. I am renouncing this lordship and this wife. Hearthstone is welcome to both of them, if he likes. On the morrow, I will return to King's Landing and swear my sword to the new High Septon and the Seven. I'm going to take vows and join the warrior sons." Cersei created what will be the downfall of House Lannister. To add to the irony, it was her dumb idea to knight Lancel in the first place. So now he can easily become a well-armed warrior son, likely in a commanding position. Lancel as a character in Game of Thrones kinda went nowhere, like with a lot of the minor cast. But this prophetic dream talk in the Book of Feast for Crows has skyrocketed him to someone to look out for in the coming moments he'll have in King's Landing. He did in fact make it here by the end of the 4th book, and witnesses Cersei's walk of shame in the 5th, and the last installment in the series we have so far. The new Kingslayer has already confessed everything to the High Sparrow, leaving Cersei no choice but to have a trial by combat for her involvement in the regicide. Lancel got 2 things right so far from his dream. Jaime did unexpectedly visit Dari, and he also knew what he'd done, just needed to hear it from his mouth, but didn't kill him for it. Well, not just yet. Lancel isn't the only possible prophetic Lannister in the current story. Jaime and Tyrion both have crazy dreams with amazing symbolism. I made a whole video about Jaime and his dream, where he had to face his demons about becoming the Kingslayer. Tyrion has one, but I'm still planning another video on, where he kills Tywin again, and then Jaime as well in a major war. In the final epilogue chapter of the 5th book, Lancel's father, Kevin Lannister, is assassinated by Varys for being just a little too competent. Varys deeply wants Cersei to destroy everything the Lannisters have built, just when Kevin was trying to install Lancel as a Kingsguard instead of a warrior's son too. And Lancel is continuing to be against Cersei and House Lannister. Last word of Jaime is that he disappeared with Brienne somewhere in the Riverlands, and completing Cersei's demand of bringing the Riverlands back to her control. Both Kingslayers are in a very interesting place in their redemption arcs, but just who's giving them these visions? With both turning on Cersei, it could be the Three-Eyed Raven fighting for humanity, but it could just as likely be the Lord of Light, especially in Jaime's case, because the Faith of the Seven has no magic involved in the religion. Jaime's prophetic dream involving his sword being on fire leans towards the Lord of Light. While all book nerds are dying to read what happens next to the old Kingslayer Jaime, since we're left on a crazy cliffhanger like with most characters, Lancel the Kingslaying warrior son has a lot more left in his story. If the High Sparrow simply requests that he become a knight to rival Jaime's old skills, Lancel will dedicate his life to this. He is completely convinced he is only living to serve the Faith's higher purpose. Just don't know how the 2 Kingslayers will be put into position to fight to the death, fulfilling the prophecy. As crazy as that sounds, remember, Prince Rhaegar Targaryen had 0 interest in becoming a fighter, but the Promised Prince prophecy drove him to training vigorously to the point where he was a great warrior, unhorsing and defeating Brandon Stark, Arthur Dayne, and finally Barristan Selmy. You can do it, Lancel. Thanks for watching this one, guys. I'll see y'all later.